God bless everyone. We are the presenter of Group 4 and our topic is Phase Theme 2, Challenging Prejudice and Building Tolerance. Most of what we do in life is a matter of who we are. One thing that motivates human being is the tendency to satisfy biological survival needs. According to Gordon Allport, 1958 asserts that humans have a propensity towards prejudice. This propensity lies in their normal tendency to form generalization and categories whose content presents an oversimplification of their world experience. Categories are the basis for normal prejudgment, and we cannot possibly avoid this process, or orderly living depend upon it. In other words, we are often depend upon our ability to place people, ideas, and objects into different categories to make the world easier to understand. We are simply overwhelmed with too much information to sort through all of it in a logical, methodical, and rational fashion. Unfortunately, this quick categorization leads to faulty assumptions that have an impact to an individual and the world at large. People sometimes assume that because we say prejudice has evolved roots, we are saying that the specific prejudices can't be changed. That's simply not the same. What we think and feel and how we act is typically the results of complex interactions between biological propensity and learning experiences. Evolution may have prepared our minds to be prejudiced, but our environment influences the specific targets of those prejudices and how we act on them. Prejudice is the negative feeling or attitude towards a person or a group even if it lacks basis. Prejudice is an assumption or an opinion about someone simply based on that person's membership to a particular group. For example, if people can be prejudiced against someone else of a different ethnicity, gender, or religion, if someone is acting on their prejudices, they are prejudging someone before they even get a chance to know them on a deeper level. Discrimination refers to the negative action towards members of a specific social group that may be manifested in avoidance, aversion, or even in violence. One of the problems in this world is how people think negatively and act to something without any basis or appropriate information. Stereotypes refers to the negative opinion about a person or a group based on incomplete knowledge. People are being unkind toward those who differ them in terms of skin color and other physical attributes, ethnicity, religion, sex, gender, and or social economic class. If you are stereotyping a person, it means that you have prejudice on that person, and soon you will discriminate that person depending on the degree of your prejudice. So, it is important that before you think of negative thoughts of a person, see it that you have a basis, because peace starts with you. It starts on how you think and it affects on how you act. On the other hand, one effective way to challenge prejudice is by teaching tolerance. Education for tolerance aims to counter influences that leads to fair discrimination and exclusion of others. There is a need for schools to educate citizens not to accept hateful propagandas about the different other, and instead appreciates other cultures and respects cultural differences. Educating for tolerance is a practical alternative that intolerance has given rise to violence and discrimination. Teaching for tolerance will aid in protecting human rights and saving lives.
Good morning and God bless, ma'am. So before I'm going to proceed my part of this topic, so I'm going to introduce myself first. So my name is Mariano M. Damuluan Jr. and I'm currently second year student at the NCMC taking the Bachelor of Science Education, which is major in science. So for today, ma'am, I'm going to discuss the continuation, which is the type of Prejudice, okay? So, what are the type of prejudice? Okay. So, the first is the racism, the belief of one's culture or racial heritage in innately superior to that of others. Excuse me. Hence, the lack of respect or appreciation for those who belong to a different race. So when we say racism, it is the discrimination, okay? We're talking about here the discrimination of one group or antagonism. So against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group. So for example here, the treatment, okay, the treatment of the work. So there's occurring of unfair treatment at work, maybe based on race, okay? So racism there including the colors, the skin, the ethnic group of one person. So in other words, the racism is all about circling about the discrimination in one person. So the next one is the sexism. So a system of attitude, action, and structures that subordinates the other of the basis of their sex, where the usual victims are women. So in sexism, here is the discriminatory or abusive behavior towards members of the opposite sex. So that's the sexism. So now here comes the heterosexism, negative attitude towards the lesbian and gay and men. So here is the discrimination or prejudice against the gay people, okay? Against the gay people on the assumption that heterosexuality is the normal sexual orientation. Okay, so that's the heterosexism, is the discrimination against the gay people, all the LGBT. So that's it. So the classism, it means the distancing from the perceiving the poor as the other. So we're not going to explain this one because we already know the explanation. We already know this kind of prejudice is been occurring as now generally in our surrounding, in our environment, in our society. So by degraded the poor people. So that's it. So the next is the linguicism, negative attitude which members of dominant language group hold against non-dominant language groups. So here in the linguistic is the discrimination based on a person's language, okay? Competition among or unequal treatment of language and their speaker communities. So we already know this is the kind of prejudice we've been encountered this in a part of the world, and even your friends, even you, even us, we already experienced this one. We already caused this one, okay? Do this one towards our beloved native citizens, okay? So this discrimination occurs when a person treated differently because of her native language, like what I've said, or other characteristic her language skills, like mimicking them, even though even for us we're not know, okay, even for us we don't know what are they saying, we're still mimic them, copying them. For us it's making fun of them, their language. So that is the example of prejudice, the linguicism. So that's it. So here for example linguicism, here is the example, an employee, okay? An employee may experiencing the language discrimination, okay? At the work, if the workplace has a speak English only, okay? But her primary language is one other than English. It's not English, so there's another word. There's no excuses. You must follow the rules of the company, what you're working on. You need to speak English, even it is hard for you to speak it. But it is the policy of the company in order for you guys to understand each other. So I know there's an advantage or disadvantage, but In other words, it is been including to prejudice. Okay. So the next one is the ageism, negative attitude held against the young or the elderly. So by discriminating, you're too young, you're too old, you do not need to do this. So that's the example, the ageism. They are based on the age of the person. So next one is the lookism. So lookism, prejudice against those who do not measure up the set standard of beauty. The usual victims are here the overweight and the under and the dark skin. So usually the victim here is the obese persons, the overweight persons, and and also the black, what we call their nigga. So they discriminate the word nigga. So that's the example of lookism. And also when the person told you that you are an ugly, okay, you're not belong in this group, so get out. So that's the lookism. Look at your shoe, look at your, just a part of entire of your body has been prejudiced by lookism. So that's the example of lookism. So the next one is the religious. So religious prejudice against those who are followers of religion other than they are here in the religious, negative attitudes, okay, negative attitudes or behavior between people of different religions group because of their different religious beliefs. So there's the argument between the other religious, okay. I know where lots of religious been occurring in this era, and some of people has been you call this one not easily comprehend what was the what was the truth about the religion. So that's it. So thank you. For me, that's the part of the types of the prejudice. Thank you. On the next report, we're going to discuss the following topic. So thank you and God bless.
God bless everyone. By the way, my name is John Ray D. Carnally. At this moment, I will be discussing about education for tolerance and respect. So this topic is quite interesting because you will be able to understand and appreciate more on our individual differences as well as our humanity. So let's go over to our next slide. So I would like to ask you some questions. What is the reason why there were a lot of people who are being discriminated, who are being hated because of their individual's uniqueness? It is because the existence of prejudice. Prejudice is actually a preconceived opinion that is not based on actual experience or reason. So basically, it will create some negative influx towards people because it leads to unfairness because of some opinions that are not true, because you suddenly find it out when the truth comes out on the later moment. Next, tolerant is not tolerating what is unjust, but it's respecting, accepting, and appreciating the rich diversity of cultures and various forms of human expression. So basically, when we say tolerance, we oftenly disregard the real meaning of tolerance in our daily lives, which is not actually to be allowable in all bad activities or intolerable action. Instead, it is fostering a respectful and inclusivity towards each other. Regardless of their culture, regardless of their incapability, they should be treated and they should have the rights to know, to express themselves of who they are, because that's part of their human expressions, right? So let's go ahead. Why we need to teach tolerance? UNESCO asserts that education is the most effective means of preventing intolerance. There is a need for school to educate citizens not to accept hateful propaganda about the different others. So, good thing to know that it is put into practice in our school, the value of tolerance, right? So, we are obliged to follow tolerable actions like respecting everyone regardless of their differences, may it have capabilities or not, they should be deserve to be treated equally. And that is the main function why we have a school, to educate citizens, to accept that we don't have to compare to others because we in fact are individually unique, and we are created with God with that kind of characteristic, right? Next, call to challenge prejudice. So this is our main job or our main task for this lesson, which is to prevent prejudice, which seems to be widespread in our country nowadays, not just the Philippines but all over the world. The call to challenge prejudice is to enshrine in various human rights instruments as well as international agreements and treaties which states have affirmed their commitment. Okay, so good thing that we have some organizations who actually intervene when they found out that there were some particular group that is being discriminated. They would directly assist the victim so that they would be treated equally in accordance with into tolerable action. Negative effects of prejudice. So I'm going to discuss to you some negative effects of prejudice. This would negatively influence academic achievement and self-esteem according to ANSYS et al. 2000, which is actually true because I myself actually experienced this kind of discrimination when you're at the top. Someone would assume that they're surpassing their level of their knowledge, like, so this seems like to criticize someone without realizing I'm actually did my best without realizing that I gone through this because I studied a lot. Victims are more likely to drop out school. The worst scenario is that those who are not good at school, they were a kind of victim like this. They have to decide to drop out school instead of continuing some school, and that is the sad reality that we should further assist, because those victims are feel that they are not belong, so that's why they can't open up to their feelings, their real feelings that they have, because they are driven with fears because of some discrimination, right? So next, some ways to prevent prejudice is just re-examining our own prejudices, raising consciousness, asking questions, and committing to change, influencing others. This is the best thing that we need to consider, because before you judge, you try to examine yourself first. I am worthy to be the one that is the one who judges, or I am enough to judge everyone. So try to look at yourself before judging anyone. So raising consciousness, this is one of a kind of interesting idea, because prejudice comes out because of ignorance. There's a lack of awareness about the problem, the certain people who suffered a lot without knowing that they undergone something or they went through something. That's why they felt like they're alone, they want to isolate themselves because they went through something. Asking questions and committing to change and influencing others. So try to ask some questions. Is it worthy that I will be going to judge the person or a group of certain people without knowing that I am also have some incapabilities, because we are not born perfect, right? Okay, I think that's the end of my lesson. I think highlights there that no matter or regardless our cultural diversity, we should foster respect, promote togetherness, inclusivity rather than exclusivity, because it will save a life at the end of the day. Thank you.